Hi, and welcome to the show. Today is Recovery Wednesday, December 28th, 2016. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581. Press 1, and that puts you in queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and your questions because that makes this your show. Welcome, Michael. Hello, Michael. Well, I don't know if he's mute challenged or what's going on. He's in another room.
He's mute challenged.
There
what can I say? He was mute challenged. My apology. Well, glad you're here with us. As we wind up 2016, according to somebody's fantasy about calendars, and we get the opportunity to move into a new year, or at least in theory, that's what they tell us is happening. And of course, time is a useful fantasy. I love what Einstein says about time. He says, time is not real. Time is an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. So here we are at, we're supposedly in Central Time, and it's noon, and somebody else is listening to the show is in Eastern Time, and it's 1 o'clock, and somebody else is in California, and it's 10 o'clock, and got to be a fantasy if everybody's in a different time. So it's a useful fantasy, and useful fantasies are okay to engage in. But what we find is that too often people engage in destructive fantasies. Fantasies like, you made me mad, you made me sad, you hurt me, you did this, look at what you've done to me. As opposed to truth of, gee, I've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people, and what I need to do is recover my being. So our whole idea of recovery is that if you hold a newborn child, you know exactly what a human life is. If you've lost yours, you've got a problem. And your problem doesn't belong to anybody but you. It's you who has to recover your human life. And you say, but Michael, in these circumstances, who could possibly have that sweet, awesome presence of love? Someone who doesn't have your problem would have that sweet presence of love. If, of course, they didn't have a different problem. But what the mind tends to do is make the game up about how it's everybody else's fault. And so what we're looking to do is to recover the truth of who we are, and to bring the truth of who we are as this presence of love into being. A really important step in the process of healing is to give yourself permission to heal, permission to live in wholeness. And oftentimes the mind inhibits the healing process that would otherwise happen because there are thoughts like, I don't deserve it, I can't have it, it will never happen to me, I'm a sinner, I'm supposed to be condemned, all the crazy things that we've been told by the world. And so give it up and give yourself permission to function fully, freely, 1,000% as the awesome presence of love that you are. Let every cell in your structure be fueled by that. Know that that's the energy field in which you live, move, and have your being. And we are each designed to feel from that space of connectedness to love. If we're not, then we're following generational patterns. And all we need to do is be willing to forgive those patterns. Now, when they said to Yeshua, well, how many times do we have to forgive those patterns? Is 7 enough? In Aramaic, he said, no, it might be as many as 77 times 70. So there's work to be done. It's not a wimp's work. It takes willingness, takes love of truth, and putting the pen to the paper. So we're here to support that process happening. And yesterday we didn't get to hear much from Dr. Tim since he was someplace loud. And so maybe we can say hello to Dr. Tim and see how the young man is and what's exciting for his world today. Dr. Tim, I know you guys had a support group last night, or at least I believe you did.
We did, and we were busy getting a jump on Recovery Wednesday by recovering the truth of our nature as love and our conscious awareness, and we had a little celebration. We had three people actually who have had birthdays within the past week, one whose birthday is actually on the 25th, a brand new person who showed up to the group. So we had a lovely session, and we did a little chanting of the word abun, which is the first word in the Aramaic Lord's Prayer, and an explanation of that. And then we had a little discussion about how all of this work is about experiencing and stepping into an experience rather than thinking about who's right or wrong and trying to prove whose technique is better than whose. And I think as a general statement, it's safe to say that most everybody in the group last night got to recover another step closer to their experience of their true nature's love. Some were actually moved to tears by the talk with Yayam and the discussion afterwards. So it was a lovely time.
Fabulous. Awesome.
I ended up, this is the third support group in a row where nobody else wanted to do a worksheet, so I did a worksheet, and I had a nice little piece of work, an insight drop in about my age-old process of shutting off or tuning out or ignoring my intuitive sense and giving it up to try to stay connected to people who were functioning from their logical, rational, fearful sense. And so it was very productive for me, and probably, if history serves, very useful for the others watching, listening, doing their own worksheets. As is often the case in a group like that, the topic that somebody chooses to do their worksheet on out loud often resonates with the other group members. And so I was blessed many times over, again last night, for having all those loving people. I think there were 10 people in the room. And having another year celebration, realizing that this has been a full 6 years now that we've done this MindShifters Radio show, and it's just a blessing, blessings upon blessings. And it was interesting this morning, the other thing I wanted to mention before I forget about it is somebody left a voice message for me that they have been having great difficulty finding the internet show. And of course the reason is because the internet show has moved the website and has moved the call-in number a couple times. So I thought I should mention it, that if you're on the call, if you're on the web, if you're hearing this on the, what do we call it, in the archives, please help us spread the word that MindShifters Radio is now at a new website. MindShifters is found at www.blogtalkradio.com/MindShifters with an S radio. And the call-in number is 563-999-3581. So if you know somebody who used to listen, who hasn't in a while, and they're trying to find us, help us spread the word.
And they can also, if they go to whyagain.org, there is, over on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a picture of a radio microphone, and it says live radio show Monday through Friday. And if they click on that, it will take them to a page that has all of that information that you just gave. So they can pick it up there as well.
Yeah, I keep trying to send people to your website as the easiest way to get there, but then again, on a regular basis, I have people say, yeah, but just tell me the number. So,
been there, done that. Well, and that is a good reminder. We're heading in. What date was it, Jeannie, that we started this? 31st, January 3rd. So we've actually got a month before we enter our 7th year, but it sure is fun how time flies, isn't it? When I think of all of the... Go ahead, Tim.
Seemingly faster every year.
Yeah. Well, when I think of all of the sweet conversations, the deep changes in people's lives, the healing that's occurred for so many people, it's just such a blessing to have the opportunity to keep doing this, to keep offering it to people, and then have the archives available. I think back over the years, and it's just covered so much territory. It's amazing. So anything happening in practice to share with us today? Any patterns you're seeing?
No, for the most part this week I am resting and recreating.
Good for you. Awesome.
I'm doing my own work, and I did some energy work this morning on the material from last night's worksheet, and I did last night's worksheet, which, as I said, was highly instructive for me about energies I still hold and project upon others related to any time somebody is acting in conflict with their intuitive sense. And that was one of the insights that I was offered last night in the worksheet, is that it results in me feeling very confused when I'm interacting with somebody who's clearly vacillating between following their intuitive guidance and going against it. And that's such a familiar pattern for me, especially from when I was younger, that's what it's resonating in me, that conflict I had in my early childhood years where I was so tapped in intuitively, and yet that wasn't a comfortable thing for the adults in my life. So that was my insight from last night that I continued working on this morning.
Fabulous. That shutting down intuition is such a major thing that happens in our culture. The fact that we're designed to have that as one of the senses available to us, and that because so much of the culture lives in a lie, when it shows up, it's instantly slapped down or shouted down, or, the child's given the look or the voice or whatever to shut them down, or the breath to make sure they get the message. No, that's not acceptable. And of course, that's the topic of our next intensive, actually. Our next intensive is going to be the 5-day de-stressing for women, and then a 4-day women healing women that Jeannie will be leading, and then I'll be doing a 9-day intuitive development intensive on the beach in North Carolina, Oak Island, North Carolina, and the first week in March we'll start that off. So looking forward to that. And if anybody sees that intuition is something that you've lost, that it might be time to restore it, then you might want to come and work on restoration, work on the practice of awakening intuition. So Tim, anything else to share at this point? Any other intuitive hits?
Well, I think I was listening to the show yesterday, and somebody was talking about a comment Michelle made where she wasn't feeling as though her contributions to the show they weren't quite up to par, or they weren't so valuable, or that it wasn't instructive to people, or whatever. She was making some kind of a negative judgment about that in a past show. And what has struck me recently is, as I go back and listen to some of the old archive shows, and some of the ones where what I ended up saying, like October 14th in 2015 and December 30th in 2015, at those times, and a couple of other shows, Michelle was asking the questions that prompted the response. And so, as often as we say it, every question is important, and your willingness to ask a question is important, it takes a while to actually sink into that realization that if I'm stepping out of the ego and I'm stepping out of my need to be right and just trusting that if I'm asking to be shown, if I'm asking for guidance, that's a useful thing. And what comes from that, either internally or on an internet show like this, if I'm asking others that I trust for support, what comes from that is a blessing for myself and anybody else who's available to it, who makes themselves available to it. So I just would like to, give gratitude and kudos to Michelle for all the times that she steps up and takes a chance and first donates her time to run the switchboard, and secondly puts her stuff out there, because we all benefit from any time anybody willingly puts ego aside and asks to be shown, asks for guidance, or admits that I'm stuck. I mean, every time I admit I'm stuck, I open a space for growth. Every time I say I know what's going on, I've closed the door and I can't move from where I am. So that's my input. Thanks to Michelle.
Yay. And Tim, the brain cells you resonate for me in terms of recovery and recovering the truth of who we are is the opening words in the book of John that the Greeks tell us say in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. And the Aramaic, not saying that at all, says in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. And you realize that this thing called flesh is an appearance in the mind. Yeshua says don't judge by appearances. And that whatever mind energy is moving at any given moment is going to show up in the mind as a picture that looks like our flesh. And so if one is in the mind energy of, let's say, that early stage child that you were talking about a few minutes ago, and the child was given negative messages, negative mind energy about themselves, and or any of their faculties or capacities, their looks or whatever, their capabilities, then what happens when that energy is moving, the mind will construct a perceptual reality, a picture, what looks like flesh, out of that mind energy, and one will tend to, if the mind energy that was given to them was that of inadequacy and inability, and then one will appear that way to themselves. And at the moments where the mind energy of I'm okay, I'm a true human being, I function well, when that's moving, then one gets a glimpse of themselves, and I'm talking right down to the physical. I know I can relate this to times I've realized I've looked in the mirror and gone, what a weird face. And I realized that face that I'm seeing at that moment is based in mind energy that was given to me in the early days, the mind energy that I need to forgive because, that's what I was told, and they're the messages I got. And so my mind turns that into pictures. And then there are other times I look in the mirror and I go, hey, not a bad-looking guy. And I realize that that's a product of a different stage of mind energy moving in us. And, with our conversation yesterday with Shelley and how he makes this huge contribution to somebody and walks away thinking, well, literally creating a perceptual image of self as inadequate and having done nothing. When, maybe something that just saved somebody's life and changed their whole family for forever. And yet, if the mind energy that's moving within us is that which is less than loving about us, then we will tend to believe that picture and the feeling that comes with it because we believed the message and the mind energy that was given to us. And to me, this is just such an important piece of recovery, is to recognize that whenever there's something moving in us that's less than loving about ourselves or anybody else, it's time to step in and do one's work and forgive that. And so that was certainly Shelley's opportunity yesterday. Well, this man is, who's homeless, who's in trauma and pain, asks for support and gets it and gives accolades for it, and the difficulty receiving those accolades. And so it's just interesting to really have that piece of information from the ancient Aramaic scriptures to recognize that literally whatever is moving in us in the way of mind energy at any given moment is going to produce a perceptual construct that we sometimes call self or call others. And if the perceptual construct is accompanied by pain or trauma, then the perceptual perceptual content is based in a lie, because it isn't based in the truth of the active presence of love that we're designed to experience ourselves out of. So to me, it just reinforced our show yesterday and gives an opportunity to give a refinement to recognize that everything you see, everybody, is a reflection of your mind energy, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so recognizing that, if there's the bad or the ugly, there's where the forgiveness is applied. Don't believe it, not for one more second. It's all a lie. And yet, if those lies have been told generation upon generation upon generation, acted upon, carried out, played out with parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, siblings, if those messages are played out, then one really starts to be convinced that they're true. And if they're not based in love, they're just not true. And it doesn't matter whether the perceptual construct that is accompanied by a feeling that's less than love is about yourself or someone else. It's not the truth. And to have the technology of first century Aramaic forgiveness, to understand that that whole process is driven by goals, and when we cancel the goal, we've gone into the act of forgiveness, that collapses the surface mind pictures and gives us a chance to heal what's underneath it. To me, is so monumental that Yeshua 2,000 years ago handed us that piece of technology, which was almost instantly, and I certainly understand why, but almost instantly disappeared, especially when it was translated into Greek. It was just lost. And I understand, because I know that for me, it took over 30 years to get to comprehend what that forgiveness process meant and what it was and how it worked. And so I understand how its meaning is lost, because it's certainly, in this sense, counterintuitive. It goes against everything that seems rational. Gee, I have this perfectly good goal about this perfectly wonderful person who isn't fulfilling my dreams for them, and so I'm going to cancel that goal. Well, why would I let go of that? Because my construct, the flesh and blood world that I see, is made up of my mind energy. It doesn't exist in any real sense that matches my perceptual constructs. It's a whole different thing. And the constructs that can contain pain are simply constructs that are not accurate. And when we enter into the forgiveness process, we get the opportunity to dissolve those. And it takes a lot of dissolving. And my offer, if you're getting going with this, if you're getting working with it, it's really just a starting point when you've done between 5 and 10 years of work. It's really just a starting point. A lot of people have been at it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Well, I've done a lot of work, therefore I should be done. No, you're not. You just scratched the surface. It's just a starting point. And so, and you realize the reason why it's just a starting point is because in just 30 generations, our bloodline's over 1.7 billion people. And when you think, what do you suppose the 1.7 billion people that came in your bloodline before you got here, what do you suppose they went through? What do you suppose they carried? What do you suppose has happened to them? They went through the Korean War, they went through the Vietnam War, they went through the World War I, or World War II, World War I, the Mexican-American War, the Civil War. What do you suppose those people went through? I mean, take a look at the insanities in Europe. Napoleon marching 500,000 men across from France to Russia and coming back with only 25,000 of them still alive. What do you suppose is in our genes? What needs to be cleaned up? Yeah, it's a long-term project. But once you realize you're handing on a cleansed and a healing and healed genetic structure to the next generation, what a gift to give. So awesome. And so we're here to support the space of bringing the truth of being, recovering the truth of being, and bringing it to that mind so that that mind heals. Any other thoughts in that direction, Tim?
Gail is with us too.
Just dittos. Let's hear from Gail.
Let's say hello to the young lady. I know she's got some exciting stuff to share. How are you, young lady? Welcome.
I'm doing well, thank you. How's
Great.
everybody else doing? Sounds like everybody else is doing well as well.
We're rocking. We got to play grandbaby time and daughter time yesterday, and tomorrow we get to go a whole day with grandbaby, so we're excited about that.
I've got to have some grandbaby time as well. Last week, got to stop by where they're living now and take my grandson for a walk in the woods, and it's very special, very cool.
It is a sweet opportunity, isn't it?
It is.
Especially when
it
you
is
realize
very
that
sweet.
you're doing your work for them as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess the biggest piece of work for me has been approaching this Christmas Holy Day season, has been doing something different. What I've done in the past to cover up discomfort for myself is to spend a lot of money that isn't mine in order to bring gifts, in order to cover up things that I felt before, and just dreading it and having a great deal of resentment come up as a result, especially when I don't get the acknowledgement that I think that I want for bringing these gifts. And this is mostly to my dad's Christmas celebration, and that includes my stepmother, and it includes 2 stepbrothers and step nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews, and me and my daughters always end up being vastly outnumbered and basically pushed aside, and there's a great divide in that particular family system, and just a lot of hurt comes up, a lot of hurt, a lot of sadness, a lot of missing my grandparents, and so those are the kinds of things that come up. And then my daughters feel hurt because they feel like they're being pushed aside, that they're not receiving the same treatment and getting the same attention as my step family does. And so this year, I just couldn't borrow the money or put the gifts on credit or do any of those things. I just couldn't do it. And what had been talked about on the Laws of Living conference call in the morning is that my personal code has changed. And because my personal code has changed, I just can't do this anymore. And that prompted a lot of pain for me, and a lot of goal canceling that led me, the inner guidance that I received was it's time to make direct amends to your dad and your stepmother. And I wasn't sure how to go about that. I wasn't sure what the words are, and the basic formula for this is to say, I have harmed you, I regret that I've harmed you, what can I do to make it right? And then I was given some insight talking to you, talking to other members of Alcoholics Anonymous that have huge conflicts with their father, and how they have made amends and how they continue to have very proactive conversations with their parents without blame and staying on their side of the street. And I knew that the main objective was to make this amends, stay on my side of the street. And the angle that I was given was to talk about what happened to me when I was 16 and what had happened.
Let me just interrupt for a second.
Go ahead.
Just in case people aren't familiar with the jargon, when you say stay on your side of the street, you mean take responsibility for what you were saying.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
okay.
Thank you for the interruption and the clarification, is to take full responsibility and come from a place of love and being able to hold that space. And not blame. You raised me, you abandoned me, you abused me, therefore this is why I became this person, and this is why I retaliated and harmed you. And then say, oh, but I'm sorry, So, yeah, absolutely. The amends process is totally and completely different than just an apology or just a I'm sorry. It is a process. It's a skill set. It's a conversation, and hopefully a conversation that creates an opening for further conversations. And so what I did was that my behavior vastly changed when I was attacked by the manager of the fast food restaurant that I had my first outside job with. I had a paper out from the time I was 12 to 17, and then because my mom was getting married and we were moving, I needed to get another job. And this particular manager at this fast food restaurant had taken me downstairs in the basement and crossed some boundaries, some very inappropriate boundaries, and I froze, and basically after a certain point, I just remember having an out-of-body experience, and quite frankly, to this day, I don't remember what exactly happened. I just know that I have never been the same since. And, fear of taking a shower, a fear of putting on a bathing suit and going swimming, a lot of those things that other people enjoy or do on a daily basis is a challenge for me to do. And being able to look at those fears in a 12-step setting and, of course, address these fears and cancel the goals in the Aramaic has been very beneficial. But that's what I did. A lot of prayer, a lot of consulting with you, a lot of, not prayer, but I guess meditation and a lot of tapping into that intuition on how this conversation needs to go and staying on my side of the street, taking responsibility. And I got to my dad's place 45 minutes early before my daughters were going to appear, and was said, hey, I need to have a conversation with you. And my stepmother said, have a seat. And my dad said, shoot. And I said, well, I'd like for you to sit down too. And my stepmother made the excuse, I got to continue to prepare the meal. And so I said those things. I said, hey, I used to be a really good kid. I was able to pay my way to Washington, D.C. I was able to do all these things with my paper out money. I paid my bills. I took care of myself. But, I provided lunch money for myself, toiletries and stuff like that. And then this happened to me, and this is what has happened as a result of that. And because of this change in behavior, it accelerated my addiction, my need to drink and use drugs and behave in other ways to cover up this. And I have harmed you as a result of this. My dad has paid a lot of money for me to go to school. I do not have a degree because of this particular trauma has attached itself to my academic life. I have never been able to pass an English 101 class because for me, that trauma is attached to the ability to write. So I brought that up. You paid a lot of money for me to go to school. I've ended up being a waitress for the majority of my life. I've ended up in situations of being an unwed mother. And so I acknowledge the harm. I regret that I have harmed you. What can I do to make it right? And I put some proposals out there. I can't afford, I am not going to borrow a bunch of money to bring gifts to cover this up, to make, this be okay anymore, but I would like to volunteer to help you with chores around the farm. You guys are getting older. I want to participate in bringing meals over, offering other things. And so what I ended up getting was that we're still well enough to take care of ourselves. You don't need to do that right now, but thank you for the offer. And then also he said, what is in the past is in the past. And, of course, this is a typical person that doesn't understand the Aramaic and really doesn't understand the amends, but definitely knows the Christian Greek system, and said the past is in the past. Let's leave the past in the past, and forgive and forget. And how about we start right here, right now, with a clean slate? And I know that's the best.
That's a pretty sweet response.
It is a pretty sweet response, and so yeah, a very sweet response. And what I have downloaded since, is to take a step back and allow him to process what was said. I think if one of my daughters would approach me and said that something happened to them, and this is what fed their addiction, and I wasn't there to listen or be there to give them all the help that they could possibly need at that time. And basically my dad turned me into a scapegoat. I was the person to blame. I was stupid. I was female. And so a lot of the things that he has said about me, a lot of the stuff that he has gossiped to other people about me, has been incorrect. It hasn't been supportive. It's never been supportive. And so that is a huge breakthrough for him. And then he just turned and said, when you go to these meetings, are you getting the help that you need? And I said, yes. And, being able to stay sober and face this is huge. Be able to talk to other women that have experienced this kind of thing and have been able to face it and stay sober has been very beneficial. I said, but I'm also doing this other work as well, and that has been enabled me to go a lot deeper and have this stuff removed from me, and it's been a deeper level of healing for me. So that's been that, and so what has happened as a result has been a huge shift in energy that feels very weird, probably because I've never experienced this kind of shift or this type of energy before.
Well, that's a huge piece of work to do, especially after all of these years with going through the addiction process, getting yourself out of it, and then being able to go back to Dad and share all of that would disconnect so many of things that you came to see as normal. I mean, literally from the age of 16, developed brain cells for feeling this way. And when you're void of that feeling, it's going to feel strange. And connecting to, remember that thoughts create feelings, mind energy creates feelings. Feelings are the warning signal that tell us what we're engaging in. That massive shift is going to feel like maybe something you've never felt before. And it's a powerful place to be.
It is a very powerful place to be. One of the other things where some discouragement has come up, I went to the meeting last night and went to an AA meeting last night and brought this topic up and shared in a much more general way about this process and the result. And I was in the room with people that had 30, three of them had 30 plus years of sobriety, and I would say the rest of the people in the room had less time than I do. Another guy did 10, and a lot of newcomers. And the conversation, I wanted to hear more about their experience with this on a 12-step level, and I could tell when people have not had this experience. And I a lot of sadness and frustration was coming up for me because they haven't had that experience of the amends process and setting themselves free.
And remember that you've got tools for cleaning out unconsciousness that most people don't have. And so for the average person who, if we were to take somebody that matched your history with dad, your history with mom, your history with relationships, your children, a stepmom, if you took somebody and matched that history, the quantity of unconsciousness, especially with the alcohol and drug abuse, would be monumental. And, you started doing this work a little better than 2 years ago, and you have been one of the most consistent and persistent at applying the tools and clearing out those levels of unconsciousness. So the average person, without those tools and without that dedicated level of work, would step into that arena and just go blotto unconsciousness with all of the pain, all of the rage, all of the hurt, all of the sadness, all of the vengeance that builds up with that kind of an experience. So that's it's not something that a whole lot of people are going to be able to remain conscious enough to do. And I know that when I share, you've been in the classroom when I've shared the responsibility communication letter that David did, and most people just, when they think of a young man speaking to his father about mother and father's alcoholism and his own alcoholism and cleaning it up with them and, confronting him on the fact that he's still drinking. I mean, most people would just cringe to the depth of pain and trauma and unconsciousness and can't even conceive of doing such a thing. And what you just did is 100 steps further down the road. So I can understand why not many people would have had that level of experience of cleaning it up in such a way. So accolades and kudos for your work. That's awesome.
Michael and Gail,
well,
I just got a text from Julie at Heartland, and she kind of posed a thought and a question. You said that your dad made you the scapegoat, and she says, did he really make you into a scapegoat? She didn't think so. From his viewpoint, he may have attempted to point the blame at you, just like, at one time you were pointing at him. But how many times in your life do you blame yourself for something that's going on and turn yourself into the thought that you're the scapegoat?
I will need to ponder that one.
Well, we'll hold the space for it.
Absolutely, and I thank Julie for posing that question. Thank you. It sounds like another level.
Whole other level, whole other layer. Thank you, Julie. Awesome.
Oh, okay. I just had a thought. So, okay, when parents get divorced, the child has a tendency, or children have a tendency to blame themselves for that. Or if a child has been sexually abused, a child has a tendency to blame themselves for the sexual abuse.
Right.
So would that be along that lines then, the blame of self?
It's perfectly. It's my fault. And that's all part of, that kind of fits perfectly with the opening discussion about how literally the picture we see of ourselves is a product of the mind energy that's moving at that particular moment. And, you look at the young woman in this culture that's sexually abused, and you look at the big, cases that have happened, and what did the case become? It was her fault. That's like, in this male-dominated society, that's almost become the standard. Well, it was her fault. If she hadn't done this, it never would happen, blah, 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 blah. And I think that's one of the major issues that needs to be addressed in this culture and turned around, and holding people accountable for their behavior, especially males who step into a place of sexual degradation or abuse of women. I mean, it's just, and sadly, there's a case in the news last year where this kid, said, well, and the father just stepped right up, and no accountability toward the son whatsoever, just stepped right up and said, yeah, well, my son's innocent, and it was her fault that he had sex with her while she was drunk, and didn't have the capacity to give permission. And, it's just like this whole game of blame and insanity, and then self-blame is definitely one that needs to be addressed at depth. And is everybody breathing? Because this is a kind of issue. Addressing this type of thing is something that will tend to have a lot of people holding their breath so that whatever's in them. And it amazes me, when I think about over the years, the people that I've worked with, that probably 70% plus of both men and women have been sexually abused in this culture. And how bizarre that is. And what needs to be dealt with from all sides in that regard is beyond comprehension at this point. Tim, you have any thoughts in this regard?
Well, I think that I need to keep doing my work. I am the one who has access to my unconscious material, my bloodline's predisposition for participating in or swimming in the patriarchy mindset. And that's the only thing I have access to, and that's my commitment, to keep doing my work, to be able to see clearly that we are all the same. We are all these extensions of love in form, that we are all deserving of the love, the respect, the compassion that any of us is capable of and is deserving of. One of my favorite mind shifters for people who are stuck like this is, I am as lovable and worthwhile as the people I respect most. And when I do that mind shifter and it stirs up anything in my mind that wants to argue against that, there's my work, to dismantle that and to be able to see so clearly that this is my true nature, this energy of love, this energy of creation and connectedness to everything. And then from that space, when I'm in that space, love is the only thing that's possible for me to extend to others.
Dr. Tim, can you say that mind shifter again?
I am as lovable and worthwhile as the people I respect most.
Good one. Is everybody breathing in the presence of that mind shifter? And for those who perhaps aren't aware of the tools or new to the show, the mind shifter is a tool we use where you take a piece of paper, you draw a line down the middle of the page, and you write that mind shifter on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you just do a brain dump. Anything and everything that comes up in your mind, every feeling, every thought, every sensation in your body, you write down on your right-hand side of the page. When you run out of things to write, you write the mind shifter again. And the right-hand side of the page, every thought, every feeling, every sensation. And basically, because the mind works through resonance, that tends to resonate anything that's been hidden in that regard. And enough time spent with that kind of a mind shifter, and up comes the unconscious dynamics in need of healing, and you get an opportunity to move through it. So, powerful one, Tim. Thanks. Jeannie, from the women that you've worked with in this regard in your Women Healing Women workshops, anything to share?
No, you covered it pretty well, and it is typical. The things that, and Gail's been in the women's workshop, so we have shared that before, and it's a typical thought. We do have a couple hands up. I don't know if they have a comment to add to that or if it's a different issue.
Let's see how Gail's doing first.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm feeling very free. I very much appreciate that mind shifter. That is awesome, and I appreciate the feedback that came from Julie. And yeah, I am extremely grateful for Jeannie as well. The first intensive that I attended was a Women Healing Women intensive, and I believe that was the first one that I needed to go to, the 9-day in Orlando in 2015, and to be able to hold that space for other women and start to explore this and to apply the Aramaic forgiveness process to it was huge for me. And also being able to attend the intensive up in Michigan in Michelle's beautiful home and with my daughter, and to be able to experience that was very powerful as well. Some sexual abuse stuff started to boil to the surface with her, with boyfriends, and how I reacted to that was something that we were able to discuss. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to bring the other daughter to North Carolina to attend the other intensive since she missed out on that. So anyway, I'm awesome. Very grateful.
And what you and your daughter went through up in Michigan, that was powerful for everybody there to be able to see you receive information from your daughter, and then the way that you did hold the space and that you all could talk about it. So that was very powerful work that you all did there.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the skill building that allowed you to, or empowered you to do what you did with your dad this past week, and that's just huge for him. What a gift to give him. Huge for his current life and for you. I mean, it's just beyond powerful.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're down to about 3 minutes. So, Jeannie, let's check in on one of the other callers and see if we've got a quick question, or maybe it'll be something we'll open up for tomorrow's show.
Okay, one of them has dropped off, but the other one is 207. You're on the air.
Hey, Michael.
Hey there, Shelley. How you be, sir?
I'm good. Hi, Gail. Hey, what I was wanting to I need some clarification myself, that Yeshua plainly says stay out of the past, that's his. Stay out of the future, that's his, and we need to stay in the moment. And when we realize that everything you've taught me about the past, it's all lies and bullshit. None of it has anything to do with us. So when we stay in our moment and it comes up, consciously realize that it's lies and bullshit, that it has nothing to do with us. Just forgive it and let it go. Just get it out of our system, and we come back to our moment. Is that not the way it's supposed to happen?
Well, I think you're right on track there. The basic idea is recognizing it's all about mind energy, and whatever mind energy is moving in the present moment is what I'm going to create my life out of. If the mind energy that's moving in the moment is from the past, and it's not true about me, then I will tend to create a present that voids my experience of the presence of love. And so whenever I recognize that's happening in this moment, that's when I forgive. It's not about doing some deep, dark search of the past. What terrible, dark thing happened to me? It's about living in the present moment as the active presence of love. And when something comes up that inhibits me from doing that, then I apply forgiveness to whatever that is. And it just moves things forward in the most amazing ways.
And something I've realized for me is that I've been told all my life, you're an addict, you're an alcoholic, you got every addiction in the world, you've got this, you're bipolar, you got this. But once I realized that those are not who I am, and I do not let those labels get attached to me because that's not who I am or what I am, all the desires for that stuff just dissipates and goes away.
Yeah, all addiction, my offering is all addictions based on unresolved pain. Resolve the mind energy that creates pain, and pain goes away. That's all.
Amen.
And we are down to the last few seconds, so we'll just say thank you to everybody for your participation. And in the meantime, get ready to create the best new year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give your bloodline and to give the world. And join us tomorrow. Bring a stranger. Blessings.